Hello everybody, today we will discuss the material nonlinearity in finite element modeling of when you try to solve the equation, the matrix equation that we have already shown. So, in that case probably in that, for example, if we consider the thermal analysis, then the output is the temperature distribution, but if you look into the formulation of this matrix formulation from the governing equation boundary condition, the matrix itself depends on the temperature. So, once we dependent on the output of a particular equation, in this particular equation, then the nonlinearity comes into the picture. Then we will see in this particular module how we can overcome or what way we can consider the nonlinearity in finite element based modeling approach. So, nonlinearity in material properties generally signifies the variation of the properties within the useful range of the application, within the particular range of the application. What are the variation of the properties is as simple as that. If we consider the we know the properties, it not during this process also properties we cannot consider as a constant, because most of the mechanical or thermal or any physical properties most of the time it depends on the temperature, and that temperature within the particular range of this temperature there is a variation of the properties. So, if you want to incorporate these things, then the nonlinearity comes into the picture. Some properties such as thermal conductivity, specific heat, viscosity changes with temperature, that we know there is a drastic change in temperature. So, very precisely if we consider the development of the finite element based model, then it is necessary to consider this temperature dependent phenomena, but once we consider this temperature dependent phenomena, then nonlinearity comes into the picture. Even the yield point, the slope of the stress strain curve also changes even with the change of the temperature in case of particular metal alloy. For example, if you look into this thing, the Young's modulus or maybe the other parameters associated with the, if you look into the uniaxial tensile testing diagram, from that diagram, that we normally produce that diagram as a room temperature. So, but if you do the same material, if you do the uniaxial tensile testing at the very high temperature, for example, maybe 500 degree centigrade or 600 degree centigrade, then you will get the time the stress strain curve is completely different from what we obtain in case of the room temperature. So, that means it means that the slope, the yield point, everything changes with respect to the temperature. Therefore, all these nonlinearities, because of the change of the temperature dependent properties in general, or in this particular case also nonlinearity may also arise in the different way also. But if we consider this simple the temperature dependent properties of a particular material, then these nonlinearities should be considered in finite element based analysis if it is desired to obtain the results with sufficient accuracy. So, accuracy level of the result depends on the how effectively you are considering the nonlinear behavior which is associated with some sort of temperature dependent properties. Now, material nonlinearity can be classified into two different categories. One is the reversible nonlinearity, another is the irreversible nonlinearity. So, we can see that how what is this thing reversible nonlinearity or irreversible nonlinearity. For example, thermally induced nonlinearity such as variation in the thermal conductivity, specific heat, that is we can say the thermal properties or even latent heat of absorption and solidification during melting or solidification. These are the actually reversible in nature, because in this case once we increase the temperature, then once we increase the temperature we can test the properties, when again we there is a after increasing the temperature, then if there is a decrement of the temperature once it come back to the room temperature. So, we can bring back these material properties. So, that is why it is called the reversible nonlinearity. Or in contrast, for example, the material plasticity. So, once we plastically deform the material, so that means one is deforming the material within the elastic limit also. If we remove the load, then it will come back to the original position. But if once it crosses the yield point during the deformation process, that means it enters the plastic deformation zone, then it will not be possible to come back to the initial position. So, that is why the material plasticity is basically irreversible in nature. So, therefore, these two types of nonlinearities require the different analysis strategy. So, definitely wants to consider the finite element based model. So, strategy to consider all this nonlinearity will be different way, reversible nonlinearity or irreversible nonlinearity. So, let us look into all this aspect. Now, first we look into the reversible nonlinearity part. In this case, First we consider the analysis of steady state heat transfer equation by conduction, that means heat transfer equation with there is only conductive heat transfer is there, neglecting the material flow, all this thing in this particular case can be taken as an example such that we will be able to understand that how we can take care of the reversible nonlinearity in a finite element based heat conduction analysis. So, therefore, we have already seen the the matrix equation in general, the after discretizing the finite element domain and assembling from the contribution for the each element, then we get the final equation in this particular form, that H t equal to F equal to minus F equal to 0. If you know, this is the basically load vector or it is a column vector we can see, but it accounts only on the load, that means the thermal loading part in this particular case, and this is the temperature variable. So, in this case we are desired to solve this equation temperature T, and it is a matrix form of the equation, and this if we follow this column, this components of the temperature, that means this temperature is defined at the different node point. So, then T1, T2, T3 up to Tn. So, there is n number of nodes are there in this finite element based in the domain. So, therefore, this equation if we solve it, then we will get the temperature of these things. But point is that once we consider the temperature dependent properties also, then from here we always are looking for what is the output, that means what is the temperature distribution, that is the by solving this equation, that is the our intended objective to get the temperature distribution as is, or maybe defining the temperature at each and every node point. But once you form this H matrix or maybe even load vector also, then H matrix itself is a function of temperature. That means, although temperature we are looking for temperature as output by solving this equation, but at the same time this this matrix also dependent on the temperature. That is why, because of that, this nonlinearity actually comes or normally the equation becomes nonlinear during the solving procedure. Now, this derivation of this equation, definitely we come this final form of this equation 1 by the this equation for temperature dependent or sometimes the coordinate dependent thermal conductivity should now be based on the weighted residue formula on the exact form of the heat conduction equation. So, we have seen that weighted residue formula, the exact form of the conduction equation, in that cases we consider K, we can consider the K as a constant, assuming that, and then we just keep the K outside of the integral, and then we derive all these things and residuals technique, and we can reach some kind of this formula. But this K can be the spatial variation of the thermal conductivity also possible, because if material is not isotropic material, anisotropy, and then in that cases probably we can consider the thermal conductivity in a particular direction can be different also. So, then spatial variation of thermal conductivity is there, or thermal conductivity can also depend, this is the properties of material that can also depend on the temperature. So, then in that case if we look into this formula in simple way, we can reach this from here to this kind of formulation in the matrix form after discretization in the using the finite element based method. So, it is simple that H we are considering H, but this H can be as a function of temperature T, and again we are looking for the output as a temperature equal to, say, this is the equation we need to solve. Now, here if we look into that temperature dependent properties or some sort of spatial dependence on the conductivity, thermal conductivity, then we can reach this particular equation, shape of the equation. We assume this the type of the equation. Now, we look into how we can solve this equation and the different methodology that we will look into this thing. So, therefore, material properties such as thermal conductivity appears in terms of the matrix H. So, definitely thermal conductivity also when you form when you do the formulation these things, and definitely H includes the one elements of the H is basically it comes from the apart from the other things other contribution, then this must account the thermal conductivity also. So, therefore, for constant material properties it can be thermal conductivities or also specific, it also comes into the picture, or other properties also thermal properties. That constant properties, then H does not depends on the temperature. So, directly we can solve this equation H equal to H T equal to F. If you directly solve this equation, then we will get the output. But when thermal conductivity depends on the temperature, then straightforward way the matrix H cannot determine correctly without the knowledge of the actual temperature distribution. That means, since we are solving for temperature, but we do not know what is solving for temperature, but we do not know, if we do not know what is the actual temperature distribution, then very correctly we cannot form the H matrix. So, therefore, we need the information of these things. So, therefore, to do that some sort of iterative calculation is required, otherwise there is no other way to solve this particular equation, because this H also depends on the temperature, that is the reason. Therefore, use of a nonlinear expression to represent the thermal conductivity as a function of the temperature will not also help, because the form of the matrix H will now become so complex even also that obtaining the solution becomes impossible, because once you try to obtain the H matrix, even then we have to incorporate the effect of the temperature also. So, it is a temperature. So, we need the information what is the temperature, then only very precisely we can define the value of the H. Otherwise, if you do not know the temperature, then it is very difficult to obtain in this particular time step or particular load step or particular any particular situation. So, therefore, that information is required, and on the other way also, until unless we are not solving this equation, we will not be able to get the what is the temperature distribution in this particular step. So, that is why nonlinearity becomes more complex even if we have the some data that H the thermal conductivity as a function of temperature, then also we cannot very precisely estimate the value of the H. So, the procedure commonly used for the solution of this kind of problem, we start with some assumption, some assumed value initial start of the some initial value of the property, and then we follow some kind of the iterative calculation. So, once we come back, we assume some value, solve for temperature, then next step we use the same temperature to evaluate the value of H, again we solve for temperature using that properties with the particular temperature. So, this way we can follow the successive iterative techniques. So, once that in between two successive iterative techniques we put some convergence criteria, then we can solve for the, then we can say the solution has converged, and that temperature distribution is the actual or very accurate temperature distribution from that by incorporating effect of the temperature dependent properties. So, that is how you can solve all these things, but the strategies adopted for this procedure are, maybe there are two different way that we consider the reversible nonlinearity. One is the we will discuss one is the direct iterative technique, another is the Newton-Raphson method. We will see how they are different, or different way we can consider the iterative technique, or we can consider the nonlinearity in finite element based modeling approach. Now, direct iteration. So, direct iteration is very simple, but effective approach to tackle the reversible nonlinearity, but in this technique we start with the first trial solution. Trial solution means we assume some solution is obtained by taking the thermal conductivity as a, maybe we can consider the thermal conductivity at room temperature value at initially assumed temperature. So, that means it can be initial, maybe at room temperature value we can start with this thing, we can trial solution. Then once we assume some room temperature value of the thermal properties, then we obtain what is the value of H matrix. H is determined explicitly using this room temperature value at the initial phase, and then direct inversion of equation 1, that means direct inversion of equation 1. So, from equation 1 is this one. So, direct inversion of equation 1, simply we can estimate. So, H value we can obtain that assuming the all the properties at the room temperature value, then we can from here direct inversion of this thing we can find out what is the value of temperature. Say once we solve this equation, we get the what is the temperature T1, for example particular step, initial step at step 1, that is a T1. Now, once we get the temperature, actual temperature, then the approximate temperature at the different nodes now being known. So, we cannot one single step we cannot get the exact solution of this exact temperature distribution for this particular problem, because of this temperature dependent then properties. So, therefore, now once we get one step get the temperature distribution, again we recalculate the thermal conductivity, we consider the thermal conductivity at that particular temperatures. For example, T1, the T1 assuming the approximate temperature. So, we recalculate or consider the thermal conductivity at temperature T1 depending upon this thing, and also we again we consider contribution from each of the different element depending upon their temperature distribution after first step. Then use these values on these things. We again obtain the matrix H. Say we can say that step 1 it is H1, which is again again we put the H1, then we solve this equation. Then once we solve this equation to obtain the next modified value of the temperature distribution, there may be some changes. So, they say modified value of the temperature distribution T2. Now, this gives, once we get the different temperature distribution, again this temperature distribution take as an input to calculate the temperature dependent properties to form the H matrix for the different element, and then we assemble all these things procedure. Again we solve this particular equation to get the another temperature next temperature distribution. So, this way the successive way iterative procedure we can estimate the temperature distribution. So, this gives the basis for the next modification for the thermal conductivity and consequently the new matrix say H2, like that. Similarly, substitute the H2 value and we obtain the T3, and this procedure continue until the particular solution is not obtained. So, therefore, some convergence criteria is fixed and iterations can be terminated depending upon the convergence criteria, but what kind of convergence criteria we can put in this case? Very common convergence criteria we can put that consider the differences between the temperature distribution of the current iteration and the previous iteration. We can find out what are the differences of temperature distribution between the current iteration and previous iteration, and based on that, if this difference between these two is less than that the predefined value, so then in that cases we can say that it reached the converged solution, and then we terminate the iteration at this particular point, and we assume that accept the latest temperature distribution what is the value as a final temperature distribution for this particular case. Now, the temperature difference is represented, for example, the temperature differences between the current iteration and the previous iteration, say for example epsilon I, and then I is correspond to a particular node point, because every time we are solving the temperature distribution, that temperature distribution means each and every node point temperature we are getting as output. Now, this temperature distribution E epsilon I is indicates that for particular node point the temperature. Now, we compare the what is the largest absolute value of epsilon I. So, maybe temperature distribution we are getting, but between the two successive iteration and then each and every node point, out of that with which cases we can find out where is the difference is maximum. So, that means we can find out what is the maximum value of epsilon I. I should value between 1 to n, the n indicates the number of nodes this particular discretized geometry. Now, once this max epsilon I max is less than equal to epsilon, then the iteration epsilon is basically predefined value. So, I can give some, for example, you can define the predefined value, say 1 into 10 to the power minus 2 or 1 into 10 to the power minus 3. If you give the predefined value, that means then difference between the temperature distribution between the two successive iteration is some either 10 to the power minus 2 or 10 to the power minus 3 value, then we can stop the solution this and we will accept this approximate solution of this case in this particular problem. Now, if we increase the accuracy level, for example 10 to the power minus 3, and if you give the convergence criteria is that 10 to the power minus 3, one cases you have given the 10 to the power minus. So, definitely if you want to, the difference can be very small difference, if you as a predefined you want to achieve between the two successive, in that cases the number of iteration can be more. So, it depends upon the what are the convergence criteria, what are the absolute value of the convergence you are putting in this particular case. Example to illustrate the application of the direct iterative techniques for the determining the value of x, we can see in that way also. Let us equation 1. So, I am repeating the equation 1 second says therefore H T minus F equal to 0. So, this is the equation 1. Now, for simplicity to understand how the direct iteration techniques or Newton-Raphson methods is working, we can go into the basis of this thing. Assume that we consider the equation on the for one component rather than the multi component at the defined at the node point, we can simply assume there is a single component vector T, for example, for which matrix is the H will also be the single term coefficient. So, in that cases say representing temperature T as a variable quantity by defined by x and H, for example, defined by m and single quantity. So that equation 1 can be written like that: m x, m is equivalent to h, x equivalent to t, and c equivalent to f equal to 0. For example, this is the equation. Now, if m equal to constant, so we can, if m is constant, it does not depend on this temperature, this value. So, simply we can estimate what is the value of x, simply x equal to c by m. So, this is the simple way we can estimate the x equal to value c by m. So, there is no need of kind of iterative technique to, because of the nonlinearity or because of the temperature dependent properties. So, therefore, m is constant, equation 3 will directly give you the absolute value of the x directly. Now, when m is complicated function of x, now if m is itself as a function of f, so equation is something that m into x minus c equal to 0. Now, m itself is a function of x, then m x into x minus c equal to 0. So, even m is itself as a function of x, then definitely this equation becomes nonlinear, it is not a linear equation. So, then we will see how this nonlinear equation we can handle, or what we can put some strategy so that iterative calculation is possible to achieve the converged solution of a particular problem. Now, to use this technique, we make an initial guess value of the x at which we determine the value of n. So, definitely we can guess some initial value of x, say x 0, and for that particular x, this, if you define the x is a variable, is because it is a function of x. So, first we define what is the value of particular initial value of the x, and that x value we can define what is the value of m, and then we solve this particular equation, we obtain the value of x and proceed with subsequent iteration. So, that means if you know some value, say x 0, define the value of m, then we solve for x equal to, say c minus something like that m 0, because m 0 indicates that m is defined at value x equal to x 0. Therefore, we encounter a number of values of the x. So, we encounter the different number of value of the x, say x 0, x 1, and we can obtain the value of which is not exactly the solution of this equation, because once we assume the x equal to x 0, but x equal to x 0 in this case is not the solution of the equation. So, therefore, we can assume the different values of the x to find out the equation, and implying that we apply in this particular equation 3, and which is also non-zero for all the values of the x. So, that means it may not be the non-zero, it means that since we are not able to take a exact value of the m. So, therefore, it means that even x 0 we can find out this equation, but even m, so m 0 x minus c. So, it means that here we are equal to 0, that is the actual equation, but if we consider the different value of the m at the different value of the x, say x equal to x 0, it is m 0, x equal to x 1, it is m 1, then if you calculate this thing, then it may not be the equal to exactly equal to 0, because is the this value of the different, and this thing we say that it is not the exact solution of this particular equation. So, then some sort of residual or some sort of residual will be 0, because it is not becomes equal to 0. Therefore, we represent the right hand side by y, knowing that the solution is obtained when y equal to 0. It means that we say we define this equation y equal to mx equal minus c, and assuming that we will reaching the exact when y equal to 0, it means that we are reaching to the exact solution of this particular equation. Then relation between the x and y is a nonlinear relation, which is given is like that, y equal to mx minus c. So, then we define this thing such that m itself is a function of x, and we can see like this also. So, in that case we can say the y represented by mx minus c, and such that this relation is the between y and mx minus c, that relation is basically between y and x, it is a nonlinear relation, because m depends on the x value. This relation is represented graphically in figure 1, for example, and the solution of the equation x equal to x f for which y equal to 0. So, once we calculate the different value of m at the different values of the x, but once exactly this becomes equal to 0, then only we reach the exact solution. It means that other way also, if when y equal to 0, because y we have already see m into x minus c. So, different values of the m and different values of the x, in that case and calculate this thing mx minus c, and so many trials we are doing all these things. Once we get exactly y equal to that mx minus c or y equal to 0 value, then we can say that we are reaching the exact solution of this equation. For example, here it is written also, say once x equal to xf is the actual solution, in that case is y equal to 0, it means that we are reaching the solution y equal to 0 means, and that solution is that x equal to xf value, that is the solution of this particular equation. So, all this comes into the picture because m itself depends on the value of the x. Now, graphically what we can see, we can show all this phenomena. For example, graphically we assume that this is the actual equation, the curve, the nonlinear curve, it is a not linear curve. This is the curve, nonlinear curve y equal to mx plus c. But why y equal to mx plus c is a linear curve if m is constant, but y in this cases m is not constant because m itself depends on the value of as a function of x. Even whatever may be the functional form, that y becomes non-linear. We assume this is the representation of the, that I just highlighted this curve, this is the representation of the y equal to mx plus c, that is the curve, the actual curve. So, now this actual curve and this is the y axis, this is the y axis, this is negative and this is the positive and this is the negative axis, and this is the x axis along the x direction. Now, once we reach the solution x equal to xf y equal to 0. So, we can reach, so this point, once we reach this point, this is the solution of this equation, because at this point y equal to 0 and at x equal to xf. So, xf is the solution of this particular equation, because we get the solution of the particular equation means once y equal to 0, then that is the, that condition represents the solution of the equation, but it happens y equal to 0 at x equal to xf. So, we can say x equal to xf is the solution of the equation, but how we can reach this particular solution from that particular point? By following the direct iterative technique. So, let us look into it this way. So, let us start with this thing, the initial guess. For example, initial guess is taken as m0, say m equal to m0. Therefore, equation 4 is represented that equation 4, we can see that equation 4 y equal to mx minus 6. So, equation 4 equal to y equal to mx minus c, this is the equation 4. Now, initial guess value is taken as m0. So, initially we assume m equal to m0, therefore, equation 4 represents a straight line. So, definitely if once we define the value of m equal to m0 assuming this is a constant, then it represents the as a straight line. So, and line which passes through a point x equal to 0 and y equal to minus 3, which, so this is the point here. If you see y coordinate equal to minus c, y equal to that point indicates y equal to minus c, and this is the x axis. So, it is at x equal to 0. So, at x equal to 0, y equal to minus c, this represents the m, that this line represent, and this is the, at this point this is the straight line. So, in that straight line represents the y equal to m0, y equal to m0 x minus c, and it starts with this particular point minus c. So, therefore, which passes through a point x equal to 0, y equal to minus c. Now, and this which is has a slope, then in this case it is a straight line equation. So, y equal to mx minus c, we know that m represents the slope. So, in this case the slope equal to m0. So, this line is represented in equation in the 1 as 1. If you see this line represented at 1, so this is the line, and its equation is can be written y equal to m0 x minus c. Now, the first iterative value of the x is obtained on substituting m equal to m0 in equation 3. In equation 3 equal to, we can see that equation 3 indicates that mx minus c equal to 0. So, from here if m equal to m0, so then we can find out when we defining the value of m, we are making the m as a constant, then x equal to c minus m0. So, then x is this value, equation 3, and thus x1 equal to c this. So, say assuming that at m equal to m0 the x1 is the solution. So, therefore, x1 is the solution. So, x1 is the value of c by m0, and this straight line it represents this thing at this point. So, it crossed this point at x equal to, because the x axis. So, therefore, it is the corresponding, the coordinate is x1, this is the value of the x1. So, because the slope crosses the line the x axis, so that represents the value of the x1. So, initially we started with the this is defining that the x equal to 0. Now, it reached to the value of x equal to x1. Now, but the actual solution for these cases, if we consider the equation, the actual this point is basically this point where the representation of this it is a x1 minus y1 this point. So, because this is the actual curve going y equal to mx plus c, and this at this particular if x equal to x1, we assume the x equal to x1 the approximate solution of this equation, then this point is corresponds to y equal to minus y1. That is very obvious because this value indicates the y1. So, this is the negative direction of the y. So, therefore, that is indicates the minus y1. Let us look into this thing. So, therefore, the exact value of y for x equal to x1 is equal to y equal to minus y1. So, that is the point I just expressed this thing, that y equal to minus y1 at x equal to x1. Therefore, the substituting this equation 4, we can get equation 4 means y equal to mx minus c. There we can substitute all this value. What is the value of y at this particular point? Y equal to, in this particular equation, y equal to minus y1, x equal to x1, and they say slope equal to m1. The slope can be different in this particular case, and the minus c. So, m1 can be obtained that c minus y1 by x1, where m1 is the value of the m corresponding to x equal to x1, and that is also we can see that at x equal to x1. So, this is the at this point the slope equal to this one. The slope is changing basically in this case, the slope is changing, and this slope is defined that at m1 the slope m1 and corresponding to x equal to x1, that is the slope in this particular case. Therefore, the second iterative value of x obtained by substituting m equal to m1 in equation 3, we can find out the equation 3 there, because we are when we are putting the equation 3 there, we are trying to find out what is the value of x, because this is the solution mx minus c equal 0. So, now we put the value of m, modifying the value of m, the recalculate such that x equal to, in this cases say m equal to m1 slope, then x equal to c by m1. So, this is the value of x2 at this particular point. So, this procedure can be repeated like this. So, therefore, then this is the 2.2 and then x equal to x2, this is the point. So, slope, that there is a change in the slope, and again we recalculate the slope and the different value, then we estimate what is the value of x3, x4, like that, changing the slope. Finally, we can reach that x equal to f, this is the thing. So, we can reach this particular solution at x equal to xf, then y equal to 0, then we reach this solution. So, this is the typical representation of the direct iterative technique to solve this equation. Now, this is direct iterative technique, we can see that this method is, so every time we are calculating the slope at this particular point, and then we can reach the solution at x equal to xf and a particular point that y equal to 0. That means, once we make y equal to 0, then we can say we can reach to this particular solution, and then once we make the reaching the particular solution, then we can get the x equal to xf is the particular solution. But when we achieving this solution, it is not directly we are reaching this particular solution, but rather we can following this step. Every time we are recalculating the slope each and every, then there is a modifying the slope, and we can, this slope is modifying, and gradually we can reach directly that y equal to x equal to xf in this particular solution. So, that is the direct iterative technique. Now, we will try to look into the Newton-Raphson method. So, Newton-Raphson method it comes in the different way, also it is also iterative technique, but we will try to observe that how it is different from the direct iterative technique, or whether there is any advantage of using the Newton-Raphson method to accelerate the convergence criteria, or to accelerate the convergence of a particular solution, that we will see. So, therefore, we start with this thing, the relation between the error term. For example, we define the error term also, because once we defining y equal to mx minus c, so then we consider y as a error term. So, then error term becomes 0, y equal to 0, then we can reach the exact solution. So, until y equal to, we consider that y equal to consider as y as a error term, and then for successive iteration we are trying to reach towards the 0, That means, but one single step we cannot reach the exactly y equal to 0, we tends to 0, but in successive iteration y actually tends to 0. Then once y tends to 0 after n number of iteration, then we can say we are is the converse solution of this particular equation. So, that therefore, we start with this thing, the relation between the error term, say for example, yn for the nth iteration, and parameter x is given by equation 4 representing m also as a function of m x. Then equation 4 can be written as, equation 4 we have already seen the y equal to mx minus c. The equation 4 can be written like that, y equal to, instead of m we can write y equal to m, because m itself as a function of x into x minus c. So, this is the nonlinear form of the equation, and we assume that y is, we consider y as a error term in this particular during the iterative calculation. So, if we know the value of y after the nth iteration, say after the nth iteration the value of y equal to yn, and the our interest is adjacent value of the y. So, basically we always compare what is the value of the y at particular iteration number of iteration n iteration, and what is the adjacent, maybe next y equal to y n plus 1, what is the value of error. So, such that we can compare between these two error to set some kind of the convergence criteria in a iterative calculation. Now, so y equal to n plus 1, which may be taken as the value of the after n plus 1 iteration, definitely for the convenience. So, we convenience the y is in the error term after n number of iteration, and y equal to n plus 1 we can do the error term after n plus 1 iteration. So, therefore, this, suppose this is the equation 9, this equation 9 we can consider, and then using the Taylor series expansion, and neglecting the higher order term, only the first order we consider, then we can find out that y equal to Taylor can be written like that, y equal to y n plus 1 equal to y n plus dy by dx. So, the magnitude at x equal to x n, and then into delta x, the increment delta x plus a higher order term. So, first order differences we consider in this particular case, and neglecting the higher order term, then we can say that y n plus 1 can be written like that. That means, the error term exactly at the y, the value of, we can see the other way also, that value of this y at n plus 1 iteration is like that, y equal to n plus this slope at this particular x equal to x n, and into delta x, that increment plus the higher order terms. Therefore, dy by dx at x equal to x n, maybe you can see the slope at x equal to x n, we can say that it is defined by k n, and say delta x defined at x equal to x n, delta x can be represented by say delta x n for the nth iteration technique. So, after neglecting the higher order option. So, therefore, simply we can say that y n plus 1 equal to y n plus, this is the slope into that increment, the delta x n. So, therefore, we are trying to link the what is happening at the nth iteration and the n plus 1 iteration. Now, graphic representation of the situation is presented in figure 1. So, this is similar to the case already we have shown in the direct iterative technique, looking into. So, assuming that this is the actual curve. So, actual curve with this thing, and this point is the exact, we assume if we the exact functional form it is possible to define, then we can say that this is the exact solution of this particular equation, as y is as a function of x in this particular case. So, then when y becomes 0 at certain value of the x, then we can say that we are reaching the solution point of this particular nonlinear equation. So, this is the graphically represent this thing, this figure. Now, after obtaining the first iterative value say of x, say x equal to x1, and using an initial guess of the m0, we can proceed the similar way. So, we started with the same thing, because y equal to mx minus c, we started with m equal to initial guess m0 value, then we solve for, we estimate what is the value of y, and then at a point in the curve which correspond to x equal to x1, we can draw a tangent. So, this basically this the initial point we started this thing, this is the initial slope at this point, reach these things, and then we get the solution x equal to x1, and there is some error also that y equal to y1. So, that particular, this is the gap between these two. So, till there is a gap between, this is the gap, this is the y axis. So, this is the gap. So, to reach this. So, after the initial guess of the m0 value, we can reach the solution x1 y1, but that y1 is not exact solution of this particular iteration. So, then in this particular case, if you look into the formulation how the from Taylor-Series expansion by considering only the first order term by neglecting the second order and higher term, then we can reach that every time this particular calculation we have to calculate what is the value of the slope at this particular point. So, now these things, then the slope of the tangent will be that dy by dx, the slope at x equal to x1, say for example k1. Then next time once we calculate the next iteration, the iteration 2, then once we estimate the first point here, then at this point we can estimate the slope x equal to x1 or y equal to minus y1, that is particular point we can estimate the slope. Then at this point we reach this particular point. So, such that x2 equal to x1 plus some increment value, we can see also the equation of this tangent which has a slope k1 and which passes through the point x equal to x1 and y equal to y1 can be written like that. So, x equal to x1 and y equal to y1, it passes through that, then y minus y1 and x minus x1 ratio, it indicates the slope k1. So, this intercept which this line makes x axis, say for example x2 is given by this thing. So, from here we can see the k into k1, this is the slope, and k1 x2 minus x1 equal to minus y1, the slope. From there x2 minus x1 we can find out in terms of the k1. So, x2 minus x1 equal to 1 by k1 into y1. So, now this increment between x2 minus x1 can be considered as the delta x1. So, therefore, equation 13 can be rewritten like that. So, delta x1 is this is the increment is the 1 minus 1 by k1 into y1. So, you can see the k1 is defined the slope at the point 1 during this thing, and y1 is defined this thing. From here also we can estimate this is the value of y1, this is the value of y1. So, from there we can estimate what is the value of delta x1. So, now once we reach the delta x1, then this is the x1 plus delta x1, then we can find out this is the. So, actually to reach x2, so what is the value of x1 started plus delta x1, that indicates the value of the x2. So, then x2 we can reach this point, again we can estimate what is the value of difference of y, the slope at this particular point, this thing. Then we can reach this directly solution, then again x2 plus increment delta x2 and x2 plus delta x2, then we can assume that it is the x3 value. So, in general, in representative way, that basically we are reaching the three steps to the solution of this particular equation. So, in that sense I can say the Newton-Raphson method, of course, in this approach first determine the initial value of the x, say x1, then from that find the slope of the curve at particular point. Once we define the x equal to x1, then find out the slope of the curve at x. So, we start with the initial guess, find out the slope at this particular initial guess. So, x equal to x1, then estimate the call it as a k1. So, basically k1 indicates the slope at this particular point. Then we estimate the incremental value, the correction. So, incremental value can be delta x1. So, at x equal to x1 we define the m, the basically slope. From m slope we can, or maybe k1 we can define k1. Once we estimate the slope, then we can estimate what is the increment value delta x1. So, the initial guess plus I think from here we can estimate the delta x1. So, then once we get the delta x1, then we can consider the next point x equal to delta x1 plus x1. So, that is how you can reach the next point. So, therefore, the increment the correction value of the x, which is given by the equation 14. So, equation 14 we can estimate the incremental value, then we can find out the value of the x. Use the new value of the x. So, then x equal to x1 plus delta x1 and proceed with another. So, that way successive way we can improve the value of the x1, x2, x3, xn, this thing, and every time each and every point we have to estimate the slope at the particular point x in the successive iteration. So, once we reach this particular two successive iteration we can compare, then all we can put some kind of convergence criteria, then we can reach the solution of this particular equation. But what is the advantage of this particular process as compared to the direct iterative technique? So, in this case the convergence is very fast. So, very quickly we can reach the convergence as compared to the direct iterative technique, but direct iterative technique, the implementation of direct iterative technique is very in other way. It is the very simple, the simple way we can calculate this thing, or but in this case Newton-Raphson method, every time we have to estimate the slope at this particular point. So, that is not there in the direct iterative technique, and few, but other way also very few iteration is needed in case of the Newton-Raphson method. So, quickly we can reach the up to the solution. So, this approach also results in convergence even those cases in which the direct iteration method does not convergence. In some cases also when the direct iterative technique may not converge, but we can use the Newton-Raphson method to get the converged solution of a particular problem. Now, we shall now extend the Newton-Raphson procedure to the matrix equation encountered in the finite element analysis. So, now finite element analysis, what we can encounter the Newton-Raphson method. In this case the variable is the multi-component, so definitely vector and its coefficient is a matrix, that we can see the multi-component vector T and its a coefficient matrix is the H. So, T is having so many values. So, therefore, terms which depends on the magnitude of the vector, that means even H itself it depends on the magnitude of the vector. So, therefore, equation H t minus f, we have already defined this equation. Now, in the actual finite element solution or finite element method, the order of matrix is assumed m H equal to say m into m by 1, m into m. So, m by m. So, it means that m indicates the number of node point and that the vectors t and f equal to m by 1. So, once it is H is defined m by m, other vectors t and f is the m by the dimension of m by 1. So, therefore, the matrix equation actually comprises of basically set of equation that we have already linear set of the equation we can find out. As the one dimensional case, the right hand side of this quantities will be 0 for arbitrary value of the t. So, that is the case, and the error term which is represented by the y. So, y is basically represented that we have already minus c, in this case m is replaced by h t minus f. So, that we can define the error term and we represent this will be now be set of the m terms also. Even if we consider the error term, we introduce the y equal to say h t minus f and that is the y. So, it is a suppose as a in the vector form. So, that indicates the error term. So, we represent these terms as say q1, q2, qm, something like that. Now, the corresponding equation can be represented like that, say h11 into t1. So, t1 is this thing, h12 into 2. So, different h term, f1 equal to q1, q1 is the error term. It means that if it is not 0, that is not the exact solution of these things of this particular equation. So, this is equivalent to y, maybe you can assume like that. So, similarly, this set of equation we can form also h m1 t1. So, t1 to tm is the variable that is defined each and every node point. So, therefore, once we get this variable and then finally, we can form this equation h t minus f equal to q, q represents the error term or we can say that equivalent to u. Now, as in 1D case we represent the vector q and t at the end of the nth iteration by the upper suffix n, and equation 17 will now be represented as like that also. So, therefore, at the nth iteration this h n t n minus f equal to q n. So, therefore, once we look into the non-iterative solution, in this case we can take this in the matrix form, and similar strategy what we have just described in case of the Newton-Raphson method or direct iterative technique. We can form the every time this error we can calculate the error q n, and we just try to minimize this value of q 1 such that this error will always try to tends to value of the 0 or a very small value. In that cases definitely we will try to reach the converged solution of a particular, but it is not possible to achieve these things in a single iteration. So, in that cases there is a n number of iteration is required, and it is also possible both way also. We can follow direct iterative technique or we can follow the Newton-Raphson method to achieve the converged solution of this particular problem. In this particular context, basically we can consider the heat transfer problem, where the each and every node point there is a only one degrees of freedom is defined, that is the temperature. So, thank you very much for your kind attention. I think that is all for today. Maybe next class we will discuss the other part, irreversible nonlinearity, maybe plastic irreversible nonlinearity, we try to look into in more details and their application in the different problem using the finite element method. So, thank you.